No Matthews, no problem, as Kallgren proves to be the solution in goal for the Maple Leafs in their victory over the Dallas Stars. Is this a sign for things to come? We'll discuss that and more on today's edition of Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome to the latest edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, your daily fix for all things Leafs. I'm your host, David Morassutti from Sportsnet. And yes, Mike is still away on vacation. We're going to give him the whole week off. So don't worry, I have another guest co-host today. You know him on Twitter as Tic Tac Tomar. This is my buddy Omar. Welcome to the Locked On Leafs podcast.
Hey man, yeah, it's been it's been a while. Like you can kind of think back to like the fan sided days on like Tip of the Tower and stuff. So yeah, it's nice to reunite on a special game, special night for a special player too.
Yeah, I mean, just so everyone knows, Omar and I do have a great history together. How many years, man? Back to when the Leafs were like not exactly winning playoff. I mean, they were winning playoff series, but they were not in playoff positions at that time. We were like happy about the Auston Matthews #1 overall.
Those were the days.
Those were the days.
When those wins were like, that was the first legitimate victory, and then seeing whether they're going to make the playoffs. They do. They face Washington, Martin Marincin, and then
oh my god, we are going back, man. Oh, and that's not even that far back if you think about it, really.
Yeah.
So for anyone that doesn't know, you can get all your daily Maple Leaf centric podcasts here on the Locked On Network, wherever you get your podcasts, and we're also on YouTube. You matched me a little bit with the Leaf swag here. I mean, my head's kind of covering the Tavares picture in the back, but I like what you got going on there. So if you're not watching us on YouTube, you are missing out on Omar's shiny Stanley Cup.
Yes, so something that for now this is the closest that I'll get to a Stanley Cup. I have it here just for is this kind of like
we're manifesting it.
Exactly. You're manifesting the energy, right? You have that. You have the bunting jersey. Trying to manifest those positive vibes. So we'll see.
Yeah. So on today's show, obviously, we're going to be just breaking down the game. The Maple Leafs beating the Dallas Stars 4-0 with Erik Kallgren getting not only his first victory with the Leafs, but his first NHL shutout. Kind of a bit of we've seen this a little bit before from the Leafs, so we're going to kind of discuss the nostalgia behind that. We're also going to give our 3 stars of the game like we normally do, and it's Wednesday, so we got to play co-sign, no sign. Obviously, this podcast comes out on the Wednesday. So, first and foremost, Erik Kallgren, not surprisingly, he got the start tonight. The result maybe a little more surprising given who the opponent was. How, Omar?
Yeah, I mean, not taking anything away from Erik Kallgren. I think the overall thing and the big difference between him and Mrazek in net is that Mrazek is more of a scrambly, acrobatic goaltender, whereas Kallgren is very just like composed in his spot. There are a lot of saves that he was making despite traffic being in front of him, where literally just leans, grabs the puck. There's even if the moments where if there is a rebound in the slot, he recovers very well. And again, like his movements aren't as dramatic. And even if he does have to make a sprawling save, it still seems controlled. It's more like a controlled chaos. And I think watching that it was a lot more calming. And me, the only time I got very like nervous watching the game was just like as the time started to trickle away in like the final minutes of the third period, saying like, oh, is he gonna get the shutout? Is he gonna get the shutout? But besides that, like I'm watching it and it's just like, yeah, like I have no qualms or worries about him in net. And I think that's a very important thing for the Leafs, because I think what's been happening over the last couple of weeks is that they play very well. Maybe they even if they're down like 1 or 2 goals, they have a good pushback. They tie the game or they get the lead, and then the first set of chances the other way back end up being goals. And I think the way that Erik Kallgren was playing, I think really did kind of provide that support that the team needed, where, hey, we can make those offensive leads if we need to, and still be reassured that we can have someone behind who can make the stop if anything goes wrong.
I really felt like in this game, the first 5 minutes and like the last 10 minutes were going to be crucial for
Mhm.
Shalgren, because if you weather the storm early, and the Dallas Stars, they came out swinging. They had like four on that, like they came out 4-0 in the shot total. Some
Yeah.
pretty tough looks for him. And I feel like when he got that first 5 minutes, I allowed him to settle down. The Leafs started building the lead. And then the nervousness of knowing, can we hold on to a multi-goal lead? Well, not only can they hold on to a multi-goal lead, but look rather comfortable doing it. Like, I don't think I've seen a game like this where the Leafs didn't really need to do much in terms of the pressure wasn't there throughout. The back and forths weren't really that much, prevalent. So it kind of reminded me of that game against Minnesota where low event, there were obviously chances, but there wasn't, the highs and lows that we've seen from the Leafs in the last 2 weeks. I think, hearing about Shalgren and his calming demeanor, it speaks to everything that this Leafs group just kind of needed right now, and they were not getting from Mrazek or Campbell.
Yeah, and I think to your point about weathering the storm early, like you said, like Dallas has the shots are 4-0. Leafs come back, they score on their first shot of the game. It was either their first or their second shot, right? And again, like if you have your goaltender making those saves and allowing you to kind of get set, get ready. Yeah, sure, you allow the opposition to have their pushback, but then once after that Sandin goal, then the rest of the game was Leafs, like all throughout. And again, I think we have to give a special shout out to the third line as a whole, because when it comes down to that whole defensive aspect, there are a lot of moments where Mikheyev, Engvall, and Camp were literally just skating around the offensive zone, just like being strong along the wall and not allowing Dallas to transition the puck. I think it's things like that I think really make a goaltender's job easier, but also speaks to the way that I think Keefe wants the team to play consistently and not just on one game here or one game there. Because I think if you have this level of goaltending and this play style, then you get to that point where you're having those positive results and that they're just happening. It's not that you have to have miraculous performances or miraculous games. If you just stick to your structure and stick to the system in that sense, then you're put yourself in a position to win games just automatically. So, this was a great step, especially after how bad things were on Sunday. And hopefully, when you have a team like Carolina coming up on Thursday and then Nashville on Saturday, hopefully you can take a lot of the positivities from this game and then allow it to, to lead to more positive results again, because you have other teams in Boston who are chasing you in the standings right now.
Yeah, I think that's the important part too, is like kind of stop the bleeding a little bit, because they missed a massive opportunity the last few weeks going up against non-playoff opponents. Tampa was losing games to really strong opponents, especially on that West Coast trip against the Western Canadian teams. And the Leafs not only didn't gain ground, but they lost ground on Boston. Some have wondered whether that might be a good thing that you don't play Tampa round one, but at the same time, you don't want to keep dropping points.
Yeah.
At this point of the season. So I think, this was just a game. I think the Leafs just needed a breath, and just hearing Scotiabank Arena throughout this game, I think talks to just what Leafs fans were looking for. Because, I'm thinking back to when was the last time you hear Scotiabank Arena really cheer for saves, even routine saves. I'm thinking back to the day where James Reimer was put into the net because Jonathan Bernier got hurt against the Bruins, and every save James Reimer was getting almost a standing ovation because people were happy to see him back. Like Curtis Joseph coming in from Martin Gerber when he got tossed for pushing a ref, and everyone was on Cujo's side. I just think it was good to see the crowd kind of really lift up Shalgren in a way that I don't think we've seen at times during plays, because there's been a lot of nervousness around this goaltending, and Leafs fans are kind of tired of seeing the same old story over and over again. And it's just refreshing that, especially with a tough game coming up against Carolina, that they have something to build off of.
Yeah, absolutely. And Shulgin even mentioned that post game with Mark Masters, where he said in his first game when he came in that Arizona after Mrazek got pulled, how again every save that that he made, fans were cheering. Now granted, it could be a little Bronx considering the fact that like, yeah, we have a goaltender actually making saves, but still he was able to take some positivity from that and run with it. And then you see this game, same thing. Like every save, every opportunity where hey, if you don't make this save, or if you don't like freeze this puck and this is a rebound, then you're allowing Dallas to kind of get back into it. But saves were made. There weren't many rebounds. The pucks are frozen. Allowed the team to reset. And again, I think it was just a very reassuring feeling that fans have not had when it comes to goaltending for a while now. Like even before Mrazek stuff, even like when Campbell wasn't looking himself and not making those saves that we were used to seeing in the beginning of the season. I think this is kind of, I guess, maybe a breath of fresh air, or maybe just like a kind of a positive light for a lot of Leafs fans. And again, I think it's moments like this that you can really build off of the season. Like every team has like a moment where it's just like, when this happened, this kind of changed the trajectory of our year. And it's not to say that the Leafs have had a bad year, but there have been a lot of bumps along the road. And, you see, Kallgren again, first NHL start, gets a win, gets a shutout, is the first star. He comes out, the crowd is just going nuts. And then he's patting his chest. He's patting the crest on his chest. And I think it's that moment. That's something that you can really build off of. That's where you can kind of really channel that Disney magic. And I make that joke all the time that like, there's always a team that has like that Disney Channel energy where they just win, like St. Louis when they were last and they end up winning the cup. Or like, think of those LA teams who like, who make the playoffs as the 8th seed and end up winning the entire thing. I think this could be something that really propels the team forward. And this could be a great story, not only for Kallgren the player, but also the rest of the team. So hopefully this continues on, and this isn't just like another random pay positivity thing that we see from a goaltender in years. But I think Kallgren has given us a lot of evidence to prove that that there is a lot of signs that this can go on further.
Yeah. And we'll kind of go through a little bit of that because there is another game coming up, and there's a lot more to talk about with this game. So we're going to take a short break. We're going to hear from our today's show sponsor, and that is, yes, let's give a shout out to today's show sponsor, and that is Built Bar, who, this time of year we're getting into, colder weather. People are not as willing to get out and keep to their New Year's resolutions of maybe working out more, or eating healthier. But guess what? Built Bar has kind of helped me stick to those resolutions, because it's almost feel like it's not really a resolution when you're eating them, because I actually enjoy eating them. I've been eating a lot of the cookies and cream flavor, one of the best, I think, out there when it comes to the Built Bar flavors. They also have the puffs, which are the first ever protein infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar, they're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Oat Built Bars are usually around 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar. I think most people would like to give the Built Bar a try. So if you are looking to get a Built Bar, make sure you go to built.com, use the promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order, and use the promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. Not only do Built Bars taste great, but they also make it healthy. I don't know about you, they pull it off every time. All right, welcome back to the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm David Morassutti here with my guest co-host Omar, who many of you know on Twitter as Tic Tac Tomar. Some nice gifts as usual from the game tonight. And I know you do write some stuff for The Athletic and usually give your grades for the night, your 3 stars. So I think it's only fitting that we do 3 stars for this game.
Mm-hmm.
And since you are the guest, I will gladly see that you get to choose your 3rd star of the game.
3rd star, I think I'm going to give it to Ilya Mikheyev. I really liked Mikheyev's game today. It's just his speed isn't talked about enough. And usually it's kind of used to dunk on him a little bit, saying like, oh, he's all speed and no hands, which, okay. But like, I think in games like this, his speed is very overwhelming. And I think still to this point, a lot of teams aren't really ready for it. Where like, they kind of think that they're keeping up with them, and then it's just like, oh wait, no, and then he ends up just being behind them, and he uses his speed both defensively and offensively. And again, I think when it comes down to the overall pressure that the third line did. And again, they got a lot of those assignments against them, the Rupe Hintz line, Jason Robertson, Joe Pavelski, and they didn't have much going for them tonight. And again, I think a lot of it comes down to what Mikheyev is doing. Again, making use of his speed, whether he's rushing the net, getting shots, or leaving pucks around for Engvall or for Camp, or just heading back and tying up sticks and getting in the way, and kind of messing up with offensive transition in that sense. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna give my third star to Ilya Mikheyev. I think he had a great game, and the cherry on top is he gets the empty net goal with that shot from the defensive zone. But overall, I think he was solid.
Yeah, usually those empty netters kind of fitting for the best players, usually on the defensive side, to get those opportunities. I was debating whether to go with Rasmus Sandin for the third star, but I feel like that'd be a little easy. I'm actually going to give it to Ilya Lyubushkin because I've been clamoring for this guy to get more of an opportunity to play with Morgan Rielly and play in those tougher defensive assignments that Liljegren and Sandin just haven't really been able to handle as much. He had 6 hits tonight, including a world beater on Jason Robertson.
Just
like
knocked down.
And I mean, I don't know. I don't think I've heard them yet, but I think we're going to start hearing some Boosh chants whenever he does a hit or something, because it's fun to watch him play because we don't really have many guys that do what he does. He's such a rare player in terms of just the willingness to just be a battering ram. Like, that would have been my second go around for a nickname. I still think the Russian Bear is top-notch quality stuff, especially considering where the origin of that nickname came from. But I was really impressed with his game tonight. I know Sheldon Keefe has been hesitant to give him a bigger sign because he was more like, I want to keep him where he's succeeding. But at the same time, when your team is bleeding chances and bleeding goals, you have to kind of rethink your strategy a little bit. I think Labushkin showed that maybe he can, for the next couple of games, show that he can play in the top 4 there.
Yeah, and I think another thing that's cool about Labushkin is, like, he was advertised as being more of like a shutdown physical presence that you're not going to notice too much. However, there are moments where he's just like not afraid to skate with the puck. Like, there was this one rush where he just like picked up the puck in the neutral zone and just like, okay, cool, I'm just gonna take it, and then ended up passing it off, headed to the net. And I think on one end, maybe that's him kind of just buying into the system, because the Leafs do play a very like active style when it comes to defense. But again, I just like that. I like that comfort. I like that that comfort, that confidence in that regard, because it's one thing being given the green light to do these things, but it's also another thing to actually do them in that fast paced situation, and not put the team in a position where they're bleeding defensively or giving up a chance again. So I think overall, yeah, Labushkin played a really solid game.
Yeah, and I think we'll see how it goes against a tougher team in Carolina on Thursday. I can't think of a reason why you would make any changes there. Your second star, who would you give that to?
Oh, Johnny T, for sure. I think, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Matthews is in the lineup. He gets the promotion to the top line. And everyone's going to be saying, well, this is the opportunity for Tavares to really to silence the doubters or anything. And he's literally just doing what he does. He's in front of the net. He's winning battles. He had the one deflection goal off the Nylander shot. He easily could have had 2 or 3 more. And again, I think this, like, Tavares does the little things a lot. And it may not be, the sexiest thing ever. It may not end up on the highlight reels or whatever, but it works. And I think a game like this, where again he's getting a lot of the focus because Matthews isn't out of the lineup, I think we see that a lot. There are a lot of highlighting packages and highlighting moments showing Tavares fighting and working his way along the board to the front of the net, getting the second and third opportunities. So I think overall, I think this is a great game for him. And I think what also this could mean is, hey, maybe there are different wing options that Tavares can work with. But that's a different conversation moving forward. But I think overall, yeah, he gets my second star.
Yeah, and he was my second star too, just because there's been so much talk about him and his struggles this season that we haven't really heard much about them lately. And I know that Sheldon Keefe kind of took him out to him and Nylander kind of put them on the pedestal of saying they need to be better. We haven't liked what we've seen from them. And I've been kind of saying that maybe get Nylander away from Tavares for a little bit, just so that you're, you know, seeing if it's just the two of them or if there's something else there. And tonight, yeah, he looked. I mean, with Martin and Bunting, it's hard to not look good.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just funny because going into this game, some were like, "Oh, it's gonna be tough without Auston Matthews," and someone's like, "If only there was another first overall pick who was a overager in the C." Well, sorry, not an overager, but somebody who was picked. Exceptional status player in the OHL. Sorry, I always forget the term there. But like John Tavares was given $11 million for a reason. People might not like it, but a lot of people who know how John Tavares plays, he's not going to be the Auston Matthews, but he does a lot of things that do go unnoticed, as you mentioned. And we saw that tonight. He was battling. Like he took some licks in this game. I saw one of the gifs you posted on the refs not even making a call on a play that was just away from the puck. Like he's literally nothing to do
Yeah.
with the play. But that's something we've come to expect with the NHL lately. So we're not even gonna waste our breath too much on that. But yeah, I think Tavares needed a game like this to kind of, I think maybe more so for himself than others, because I don't think he needs to prove it to others what he can do. I think just for himself, he just needs to get his game back. All right.
Yeah. And I think something that the NHL public relations account, I think, tweeted after his goal, because he hit 20 with his tally tonight. So it's his 12th season with 20 goals, and then only 3 players have more 20 goal seasons than him. Alex Ovechkin, who is on the way to try to beat Gretzky, Sidney Crosby, who is Sidney Crosby, and Patrick Kane. So besides those 2 players, there is no one in the league who has more 20 goal seasons than John Tavares. So
I think that just shows, longevity. And also I'm just seeing a highlight from Tavares's goal, like that face-off win alone.
Mm-hmm.
The battle he had to go through to get that puck out into Liljegren was it Nylander or Liljegren who taught that?
Yeah, you got it to Liljegren, and Liljegren fed it to Nylander for the shot.
Right, there we go. Yeah. So like that, those is plays like that I think should give people a little more credit to Tavares for how he can impact on the ice. So first star, this is a real tough one.
I know, right? If
can't
there was a player who made a debut in some way and hit a milestone.
First
wait, that did happen. Yeah, Erik Kallgren is absolutely the first star. I mean, and I think we touched on a lot of the reasons why before the segment, and it's just the calmness, the poise, and again just the reassuring feeling that I think a lot of us just haven't had for a while now when it comes to goaltending. Usually if there's a chance against, you're kind of holding your breath thinking, okay, how is this going to end up? But literally anytime, Dallas got possession, Dallas got a chance, I was, slowly getting more and more confident that Kallgren was going to make the stop, and he did. And again, whether it was through traffic, it was a clean look. He was there making the stops. And again, I think I wouldn't be surprised if he gets to start again on Thursday. And who knows? Maybe continue to roll with it. It's one of the biggest cliches in hockey. Ride the hot goaltender. If he's feeling it, if he's feeling confident, if the team feels confident about him, which I think is an important thing as well, because who knows what the team might be thinking about Mrazek and net. If he's letting in all these chances and stuff. If the team feels confident with Kallgren in net, let the kid play. No, he's not even a kid. He's 25 years old. Let him in. Let him play. And it's for me, it's Kallgren's net until it's not. And I think he's proved that today.
Yeah, and if you just want any idea just to how things have been going with Leafs Nation, I'm going to bring up our good buddy Steve's angle. Erik Kallgren knows where the posts are. golden tweet right there. I mean, and look, yeah, and I said this when Mike and I were kind of discussing Kallgren and the Coyote that game, and we're just like, oh, do we even consider putting him in the Heritage class? I said, why not? People think he's a rookie, and I'm like, nah. He's like a rookie, like almost like Michael Bunting is a rookie, because they both have played professional for a while. They just don't have the NHL experience. But when we're looking at what the Leafs need here, the Leafs do not need an Andrei Vasilevsky in net right now.
No.
Really, we will settle for middle of the class NHL goaltending right now, and that's exactly what he didn't have to go and make the ridiculous scorpion saves that you see Vasilevsky made, but he also made the saves that I think Mrazek has struggled to make. And I wouldn't I would say yes, he deserves to get the next start just based off of merit that he was so calm and collected in this one. The team played in a way that they haven't played in a really long time, so don't mess with that. You get him for the next game, and then you assess after that. I think with 3 games before the trade deadline, you let this kid show what he can do. And it's three games that are nice and spread out. He's not going to get too tired, although he's played in the AHL where the schedules are ridiculous. So I can't see why that wouldn't be an issue there. So we are going to take another break, and when we come back, we're gonna kind of look forward here. I wanted to get Omar's opinion on the Leafs and their trade deadline approach because I've been asking almost everybody about this because it's flip flopped the last week and a bit. So we're just gonna listen to our show sponsors again, and we are gonna come back with our final segment. All right, welcome back to the Locked On Leafs podcast. So Leafs come away with the 4-0 win, a game where they did not allow a goal. Something we haven't seen in quite a while. I was
Yeah.
actually going to look and see when was the last time the Leafs actually got a shutout because I can't even think of that. I should
Yeah,
have
it
had.
has been a while, eh? Like usually when it comes to the Leafs, it's just like, blowing 3-1 leads and 5-1 leads or 17 goal games or whatever the total was against Detroit that one day. But yeah, actually has been a while since there was a shutout. I guess Ottawa, yeah, looking at it now, I guess yeah, Ottawa January 1st, winning
Oh
6-0. That was the last one. So,
yeah, and I'm just I think it goes to show also that this was one of the Leafs' better defensive games since that Minnesota game, which
mhm,
was back on February 24th, almost a month ago.
yeah.
So I can't I can't think of, a better time to just take a second and just and kind of refresh a little bit because the hysteria around the Leafs right now reached another level with the Buffalo game.
Yep.
Where look, that was a bad loss in terms of the circumstances and just how the Leafs kind of got exposed a little bit there. But when you look at the Leafs trade deadline aspirations, and we've kind of heard many things, we've also had to avoid the fake stuff, which I fell victim to in one of my group chats, and I got
Same.
skewered for it.
I
Um,
yeah.
I next time people, if you're gonna quote from a radio hit, maybe actually just listen to the radio hit before you go and tell your friends, because I think we get a little too comfortable looking at the guys who repost from the radio. I
Mhm.
should know better because I'm actually supposed to listen to more of those radio conversations. But so the least priorities here, and um, I think this game, yeah, it was a good game, but I don't think it really also changes too much of the dynamic of what they need to do because Dallas has been struggling lately. They hadn't exactly been hitting on all cylinders coming into this game. The
Yeah.
Carolina one, I think, is going to be the most interesting one when you're going to make an assessment of what this team needs. But are you on board with the Leafs going for a goaltender? Or are you on the full get a defenseman train, or is there something else you think that they should try to do?
I mean, I've always been on the get another defenseman camp. Just because I think when it comes down to the stretch where you're really playing like those heavy minutes and like you have those games where like everyone's playing 20-25 minutes, the games are gritty and it's another like understated thing as well. Like the playoffs are a different beast. We know this. Once those the Stanley Cup playoff patches go on the jersey, once the things get painted on the ice, we know the refs say, "Okay, cool, go." Like go do whatever. And that takes experience. So like, and this isn't to harp on like, Rasmus Sandin or Timothy Liljegren. I think Sandin, I think, has shown that he's capable of, I think, of playing that heavier style, but we've also seen a lot of moments where, he kind of gets, boxed out a lot. Liljegren, his boxing out, his gaps have been an issue. the entire season. So like when it comes down to those, those critical moments in the playoffs, like, are you confident, playing these two defensemen who, again, I think a lot of us like kind of forget this is their first like full season in the NHL, right? And then even still, they still didn't play a full 82 games. So I think getting one more person on the back end who is kind of more, Ilya Lyubushkin like, that is more focused on, kind of that quiet defensive game, more physical, makes it difficult in front of the net, boxes players out. I think that's what the focus needs to be. And to your point about the team playing better, I think Justin Holl had a pretty good game today when it comes down to boxing players out. Like I literally watched him like force push someone like out of Kallgren's line of sight, and he was able to make the save. And I think getting that on a more consistent base is important. I think the best way to do that is to get more players who have that level of, who have that same mindset. So I'm definitely on the idea of getting another defenseman. Getting another goaltender is risky. And I think it depends on who you're letting go, right? Because if you're letting go of Mrazek, then okay, but then who do you have playing next year? Because Jack Campbell's a UFA. Jack Campbell and his agent are completely entitled to ask for whatever they want. You are not entitled to give them what they want. If this is November and Jack Campbell's camp says, you know what, we want 5 times 5, I say, okay, cool, let's sign that. Now, if you're asking me now, I don't know about that. I think I might give you like maybe around 3.5, kind of where Peter Mrazek's at. So I think that's the question that needs to be asked. And I wonder if Leafs management is kind of at a point where they're thinking, let's get tougher up front, let's get tougher on the blue line, and then hopefully that will make our goaltenders' jobs easier instead of having to spend the assets to get a goaltender. Because another thing too is we don't, even though yes, the talk has been, hey, maybe they'll keep Jake Muzzin out until the playoffs and get the extra cap space. We don't know if they're doing that. Like I saw like a couple days ago, actually it might have been this morning, where Jake Muzzin was like skating with the team in morning skate, and apparently he's feeling things are being positive. Now, granted, they're not going to rush him, but if you're banking on that extra cap space and you make a deal and you can't afford them the money, then you kind of handcuff yourself a little bit. So I wonder if the plan will end up being just to get a defenseman, and then hopefully the more secure play in front will make the jobs of Campbell, Mrazek, or Kallgren easier down the stretch. Because I think if you think of last year, like that first round series against Montreal, not Campbell's fault. Yes, he gives up that one horrible bad goal in Game 7, but besides that, he gave them an opportunity to win that series. So you have that threshold there. So I guess it just comes down to trusting if Jack Campbell can get back to that standard. And if you do trust that, cool. Is it risky? Absolutely. And again, like it's beyond Leafs pessimism. Like it would be very unfortunate if the Leafs are dominating play in the playoffs, but their goalie just can't make them a save. So, and I think the unfortunate thing is that there's not enough time to kind of make that like leap of faith decision, So I think right now, I think you focus on defense, and then hopefully that fixes the goaltending a bit.
Yeah, and I should say that usually on Wednesdays we play cosign, no sign, and I was gonna say for my cosign, no sign, the Leafs get a defenseman, but I think I'm gonna put one more forward in that the Leafs get a defenseman with term, because we've kind of heard the idea of the first round pick. Not many teams would really want to go for a rental with that first round pick. The Colorado Avalanche were able to avoid that in the Josh Manson trade. Maybe they're saving that first round pick for another deal.
Mm-hmm.
I think with the Tyler Toffoli trade to Calgary, the fact that it took a first round pick in that deal kind of sets the precedent that maybe a first round pick should be getting you a little bit more now than it did in past years. Although with the Leafs, it kind of has not worked out that way.
Yeah.
I.e. Nick Foligno, who got his 1,000th game tonight with the Boston Bruins.
Oh, nice.
Very nice.
It would have been cool if he got more of you in the playoffs, but it wasn't his fault. It was an unfortunate set of circumstances.
But I think it goes to show, though, that first round pick guy gets hurt in the playoffs, you lose in the playoffs. It's just like, well, it's bad luck, but it's also the cost reinsurance that maybe we should be aiming a little bit higher. And even Jake, in our conversation yesterday, was saying this. He said he's tired of the rentals for first
Yeah.
round picks that don't amount to anything because of the Leafs have struggled to get past that hurdle.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you think that maybe, and maybe my co-sign no sign will be, do the Leafs prioritize a player with term, or do you think they go the rental market?
Yeah, I think term will definitely be the focus, just because the cap situation is going to be up and down. And and yes, it's a point that's brought up a lot. When you have a team where almost half the cap is dedicated towards four players, you have to be mindful of that type of stuff. Also, Morgan Rielly's extension is kicking in next year as well, so he's going to get like the 2.5 or $2 million increase. So like you have to keep that in consideration too. And also it just I think it just keeps the team more competitive on a longer term, if you're getting players that are going to be there past this year. Because again, to Jake's point, you never know. And I think we've all seen, as being Leafs fans, that things can go wrong and anything can happen in the playoffs. And it's unfortunate to empty the cupboards, give up the first round pick, give up the prospects, give up the roster players, and then just for nothing to happen in the playoffs. And I don't think financially and cap wise, the Leafs are in a position where they can just make those free nilly deals. So I think when it comes down to whatever deal they make, they will want to focus on term, unless they're very confident that they can get that player re-signed. Now, there's been a tough track record there as well. When it comes to Dubas keeping UFAs in certain circumstances. Of course, it's not happening. It doesn't happen all the time, but I think the priority will definitely be players with term in, unless the rental is a significant increase. So like Mark Giordano's name's been thrown out a lot, and that's a player that some people think that could help the Leafs on the back end. He's a UFA. Now, do you give up a first for that? I don't know. But if you have other teams that are involved and then they're throwing out their first round pick, then you may feel like you have to. Um, so I think it just depends on what kind of upgrade the Leafs want. I think, knowing Dubas, I think he'll try to find the steady depth improvement that you may not have to give up a first for. Maybe it can be like a lower pick or a lower prospect, or just a player that you don't see the organization can use. But a player that can help the team for a longer stretch, because even in the free agency, Michael Bunting got a 2-year deal. You didn't get a 1-year deal. David Kemp got a 2-year deal. Andre Kosh is an RFA at the end of the season, so they saw the rights there. So I think the idea of retaining rights in some way, shape, or form is going to be important.
And I'm gonna bring up one other thing, because some people brought this up even before the season began, and that was Jake Muzzin's future here. The last 2 years of his deal, he gets $4 million per season.
Like salary, or is that
Salary
a
wise, in terms of his
ouch?
salary, he has a 2 year. So let's say even the Leafs potentially move him past July 1st. He has a no trade clause where he can pick 10 teams, but he has a $2 million signing bonus, and then then it's 2 million after that. There might be some teams that would want a Jake Muzzin, and if the Leafs could make a trade work, where, you know what, let's say I'm gonna put out the hypothetical that everyone's talking about with Jacob Chikrin. Darren Drager did say that just because he's hurt doesn't mean he's not going to be moved, because he might actually be back earlier than expected, because he's already potentially going to skate at the end of the week.
Mhm.
But let's say you bring in a Jacob Chikrin. He's on the left side there, and you decide maybe you have him for the playoffs. You get Muzzin back, and then you kind of see how Jacob Chikrin works in your lineup, and maybe that's where you say to Jake Muzzin, look, you've done some great things for us. If we can't make the cap hit work, if we can't make the money work, where can we send you? Maybe that's, I mean, I don't know if LA even has the cap room. Maybe he considers a move back there, because we know how much he loves it there,
Mhm.
or something along those lines, where I feel like just because you get a guy with turn doesn't mean you try to figure out other ways to make it work and to fit in. Because that's one thing Dubas has been willing to do. he's willing to make moves in order to get things that make more sense for the team going forward. That doesn't mean Jake Muzzin doesn't make sense going forward. Maybe he turns his game around because it has not been a good season for him. He has had some injury problems, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe this is also Kyle Dubas realizing that, you know what, we have to figure out ways to increase and lengthen our open window of of contending here, and maybe we got to go and think about ways that we move out some of the guys just that don't fit in terms of their play right now and their production.
Yeah, and that's just something that's on brand for Dubas as well. Like we've heard multiple stories of Dubas being honest with players and trying to honor players' wishes. The Nick Ritchie situation. He was told that like, hey, if we can't find a role for you in the lineup, we'll move you. Think of all the free agent signings who have signed from the KHL over. Didn't get an opportunity to play. Mikko Lehtinen last year or the year before that. No, it was last year. Hey, you don't have a place to play. We'll trade you. Traded him in Columbus, and then things went there. So I think that idea of definitely talking to having those conversations with players and thinking, okay, hey, well, this is where you're at in your career. This is where you're at salary cap wise. We don't think that that this is feasible for us. So we're thinking of moving you. This is what's up. And I think another thing as well is that you also have to think of the fact that like in 2 years, do you still want Rasmus Sandin on the third pairing? I don't think so. I think the Leafs see him as a top 4 option. So maybe as Muzzin, exits, that's where you have Sandin's kind of ascension into the top 4, and he's the one who's running that second pair full time with someone else. So I think those are a lot of things that you have to keep in consideration. I think knowing where Jake Muzzin was when the Leafs decided to extend him, I think that's definitely a thought that's that comes in mind. I think you have to have that thought. Again, not only as a team that's trying to compete and trying to win, but also again a team that has a very fixed salary cap situation. So you have to be mindful of the aging players on contracts. You have to be mindful of the young players who are going to be coming off entry level contracts. You have to make sure that there's room within the lineup for the next up and coming players. So today that was what was going on. There's talk of maybe Matthew Nyes after his college season is up, maybe he comes around. So I think there are a lot of conversations you definitely have to have, and I think that might I guess factor in when it comes to the Leafs plans ahead of the deadline. If they think that Jake Muzzin could be an option, on a longer basis, but after this year, okay, then maybe that impacts who they bring in. But if they know that, hey, this might be the last year that we have Jake Muzzin, okay, so let's trade for a defenseman who may have an extra year or two on their deal. And yeah, that probably will rack the price up. But again, I think that just what comes down to the importance of one, scouting, and also two, knowing if this player can be a fit on the roster beyond this season.
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite a intriguing trade deadline because I think the Leafs might try something that maybe we don't even expect to happen because there's just so many bullets in the chamber in terms of players that they could go after. But as Dubas has said, they don't exactly have as many shots that they can fire because they don't have the cap space, nor do they have the assets. I think now look, they have assets, but I don't think they want to necessarily trade all those assets either. And I think that's something people need to kind of realize too. They can, sure, would they like to go get a Marc-Andre Fleury, but then what's going to be the solution for the defense? It's just you kind of have to be a little more selective, and I think that's why we haven't really seen anything happen right now. I do know that there was a Seattle scout at the game, so that kind of maybe fits in line with the Mark Giordano rumors that we've been hearing. I think if you're going to get a first round pick and try to swing that into a deal for Giordano, maybe Seattle has something else that you want, because Seattle obviously needs, not only do they need assets, but I think they need the picks, but they also kind of need something to build with too, right? Maybe this is where you say, hey, Travis Dermott goes the other way and you get something else back. I mean, as much as I've always hoped Travis Dermott could be something in this lineup, the fact that he didn't even get back into this lineup, I think speaks to where his future is with this team. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think he's probably a player that may be on his way out as far as, returns in a deal. And I think going back to the idea of a goaltender, maybe if you do make a trade with a team and the main focus is a defenseman, maybe you get a goaltender that comes back as well. Like, like last year, the Leafs had made the trade for David Riddick, and it had 3 goaltenders heading into the playoffs. So so the option is still there. I think the where I worry when it comes to acquiring a goaltender is that the Leafs are kind of at a quote unquote desperation point, and teams know that. So I kind of don't want to see Dubas overpay for a goalie when the focus is and always has been making sure that the blue line is in a is as good as it can be to withstand the long-term battles of the playoffs. Because yes, winning a round is going to be sweet. I'm going to be happy. I'm probably going to cry. But I think as an organization, I think you can't just say, "Okay, Roy, we're just want a round. That's it. Sweet, cool." No, you have to be thinking, longer than that. Especially considering like what some of the first round matchups we might see. There are going to be a lot of good teams that are going to be eliminated in the first round, and we saw last year, man. You win one round, and who knows, and who knows what happens. So
It still scares me to this day, man. It still bothers me to this day what could have been.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what is well. If I'm Dubas, that's what I have to be thinking about. Like last year, the one thing they played well defensively, the goaltending was great. They could not score, right? And I think that's what you don't want after this playoffs. You don't want it to be. It was this one thing and that's why they lost. That's what you want to avoid, because then if it's that one thing, the big question is going to be, why didn't you address said thing at the deadline? And then Dubas's seat is on more fire than it already is. So I think that's where I think that needs to be the overall plan for the playoffs, is to make sure this team is covered overall. And again, I think if you shore up the defense, that improves the goaltending, and that overall improves the offense, because then the team can just focus on scoring and not be worried that any chance they give up ends up in the back of their net.
Yeah, no, I think the psyche that also does of adding a player that fits what the team needs also helps the team going forward, because we've seen teams respond either way in terms of what teams do at the trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Want to thank you, Omar, for joining us on the podcast. It's always great to talk with you. It's been a little while, but
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always looking at what you're doing. You have any projects coming up? I know you do some stuff with the Athletic. You got that video series with Yahoo. Anything in the pipeline there you want to promote right now?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. So, at the Athletic, I'm doing the Maple Leafs report cards. So you can check those out. And then with Yahoo, we have in the mentions, which is mostly Leafs focus, and also Zone Time with a great cast. Sam Chang from the broadcast, Julian McKenzie from everywhere. Julian McKenzie is great. He's everywhere. And yeah, I think when it comes down to the Yahoo stuff, there's gonna be a lot of interesting and exciting stuff for the playoffs. So definitely check that out, because hey, playoffs bring out a lot of emotions in different people. So it'll be definitely fun and interesting to talk about how those things go. But fingers crossed, the Leafs are able to do it this time.
Yeah, and we're gonna obviously hopefully have Omar again on the podcast. I mean, we got a lot of shows coming up, not only after the trade deadline, but leading up to the end of the season and playoffs. So hopefully we'll be able to have you back for those. So if you want to subscribe to the podcast, make sure you go wherever you get your podcasts, subscribe to Locked On Leafs. Make sure you go on YouTube. We're trying to reach the 500 subscribers, and we're going to give away some Leaf swag once we hit it. We're creeping up there. We're getting up there. Make sure you go and follow Omar on Twitter at TikTok Tomar. That's TICTAC Omar. Just so some people might not be able to spell Tic Tac Tomar. No judgment against that. Go find myself at @D_Morassutti. And even though Mike's not here, I will throw his Twitter handle out there too, at Mickey_Canuck. And follow the show also on Twitter at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode tomorrow. I have another guest lined up. We're going to do a little prospect talk, a little preview of the Carolina game, and who knows, we might actually have potential news to talk about. We just don't know yet, but we'll discuss that. Until next time, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.